Thanks. I think I might start off with trying to get a show of hands or emojis about how many people in the room feel pretty good about having tracked the last 2 years of progress on the new Nicollet project. All right, what about if you have your hand free, folks online? I know Sarah and Ms. Robinson knows about it. Otherwise, we've got Hannah. Oh, because Carly is from our consultant taking notes. Well, Hannah, I'm going to go through this pretty quick, given the previous knowledge in the room, getting going, but feel free to certainly stop, raise your hand. I'm sure Maggie will be watching, and we can stop at any point in time to answer questions. But I'm going to take the first part of this pretty quick. This evening, my colleague Adrienne Bachheim is also presenting at Phillips West meeting. I don't remember which committee it is, but she's at one of their meetings this evening, presenting something very similar. And folks in that neighborhood, we've been really trying to do our best to get this information over to those living on the east side of 35W. That border is really, really hard for us to get over there and really start to make an impact. And you know, this site here does feel really separate and distinct because of this huge psychological and physical barrier between our east side and west side of 35W. So thanks for being here, and we'll just get started. It's a pretty brief agenda. Yeah. There we go. So I'll just do project overview and recap, next steps, discussion questions. That's not exactly what we got. I made some changes. We'll just go with it. And that's me. I work in business development and community planning and economic development, and my name is Rebecca. Everyone's probably seen this fabulous image. It's 10 acres in blue and in the yellow section of where the new Nicollet will run from Lake Greenway. And yeah, this is our project timeline. So you haven't seen 2 red check marks before, so that's exciting. We have completed phase 1 and phase 2. We are now in phase 3. And phase 3 will take all of 2024. We started back in about April when we completed the phase 2 back in March of this year. And so hopefully phase 3 will be done in approximately February. We're hoping February, but it might be March 25. So again, it'll be about a full year. We're really working on development objectives, which I can go into a little more detail about what that means. And then our public works colleagues are doing all the design and engineering for the actual street itself, as well as the new ramp that will be going down to the Greenway and the new bridge over the Greenway, and a reconfiguration to improve safety of that kind of jog intersection between the Saloon and 29 and where they cross next fall. Construction is looking like we will still be able to start construction on the street in 2025, and then we would be issuing our first RFPs for development in 2025. So these are the ones, Maggie, that I'm going to fly right through. But here's the goals from phase 1. Phase 1 was really the year 2022, give or take. And this is what I say the focus group, like we've been trying our best to get over to our Phillips West and Central neighborhoods and residents on that side. It's approximately a half-mile north of 26th and a half-mile south of 34th, and then it's grown in each direction to Glendale and Portland. So the little dots are where we had our engagement events during phase 1. And we're continuing to use this map through phase 2 and through phase 3. And all of our proactive engagement is in that blue box. Of course, everyone in the city is invited to come to our events and fill out surveys and all that, but we're trying to make sure that we do as much as we can proactively in that blue box. Yes, sorry.
Is that furthest east border Chicago?
Chicago is the Phillips West and the Central border, yeah. And so these are, in phase 1, we said, hey, prioritize the most important things that you want to accomplish on this huge 10-acre site. And so this was the survey. So this is like everybody and their brother lot I think, I don't have the slide in here, but in our phase 1 summary, we note how many people lived in one of those 4 neighborhoods that you pick your neighborhood, and so we were able to disaggregate our data by those 4 neighborhoods versus everybody else. But this is for everybody. And so transportation, obviously, getting a new street, public space, I think is huge. In a lot of ways, that is encompassing within that word, public space, it also means just green space, like space for trees and plants. Obviously, some new housing and more commercial activity rounded out the top 4, all fairly evenly distributed, which means we're really trying to achieve a lot at this site, which is what we're now going to be looking at in phase 3 is how do we do some trade-offs? We can't get absolutely everything. So we're going to have to talk about trade-offs here in phase 3. All right, well, we're going to try. And so the outcomes from phase 1 were desired outcomes, and there were 23 individual ones, but then they were organized into these 6 themes. And so again, this is all available on the web, but the 6 big ones are there, and really follow those 4 categories. For connecting people, that's going to be your transportation, culturally relevant community space, that's going to be your open space, as well as some of those community services deliver. Housing affordability and wealth building, that's going to be some economic development, as well as the housing piece. Business opportunities and success is both wealth building and commercial activity. So you kind of go through and see how those themes line up with the priorities that the community was interested in. Okay. And then these are our goals. So you'll see these throughout the entire project from start to finish. And these are trying to really distill things down to 5 key points. But again, just another way of basically saying the same thing, in my opinion. But goals, outcomes, we got them all.
More terminology.
Yeah, then phase 2 was really focused on the street layout and then where we want the public space that is a really critical need in this area and at this site both. And so there's some of the things we were looking at, the street elements, the greenway ramp, and then how much and where and what types of amenities we want in our culture. So I'll walk you quickly through the process that we used to get to the final product that we council in March of this year. So that is, yes. Oh, well, here's the timeline. Okay, I'm gonna just keep going. I just did that. The road-based priorities were, again, people were able to take a survey, and they could choose their top 3, and this is everybody. Again, we do have this disaggregated for just the 4 neighborhoods in our other documents, but for tonight, this is just the top 4 are all very similar. So that's going to be green space, walking and walking or using wheeled transportation, biking, and transit. And Public Works did 4 design concepts and then got feedback on what people liked or disliked about each of these different concepts. So you probably are familiar with them. You can take me to the next slide, and this is the one that was the finished product. So it's not exactly any of those 4 options. It's essentially option 1, but then with some modifications. So if this is just one specific spot, and you'll see there's a park on the right, it'll be a park for about half of the road length on the east side and a building for about half the length on the west side when you get to the public space section. Then sidewalk, and green space / parking, and then 2 travel lanes, more green space, and some parking and more walking. And this is the visual overhead, which is looking really blurry, or my glasses don't work, something of the sort. But it shows you how there is one section, there's about 1/4 of the new block that will have bus only. So the bus that's traveling northbound on Nicollet will actually stop north of the intersection so that it can avoid that red light and waiting, and it'll pick people up essentially where that P is, and then it'll have that bus only lane to be able to merge back into the flow of traffic. And then you can kind of see some of the reconfiguration and the addition of a lot of extra boulevard and green space in the reconfiguration of 29th and Cecil Newman. And it'll make it, I'm told, they'll put in a light, and this is, the engineers that do transportation design say this is much safer. And I trust them because I don't know anything about transportation engineering. So look, I'm like, great, because right now it really doesn't feel like you know where to go or what to do, no matter what kind of, whether you're walking or biking or driving, you kind of get there and you're like, now what am I supposed to do? So this should be much clearer.
Question about trying to understand the greenway access, and I'm wondering if it's maybe just not finished on there.
It is not finished on there. Okay. So the greenway access, do you kind of know where it goes right here? So it'll, yeah, and then it'll spit you out on First, right there. So, and then,
Right.
Yeah.
oh, yep, that's the new one. So you'll pick it up. It has to be longer to make it ADA than the current one.
Right, current one.
And it's,
So are you saying at the entrance here,
yeah,
going all the way down, and so there
Yeah.
will be an entrance here?
there won't be an entrance,
Or,
right?
Will there
And
be
then
stairs?
First, there are not stairs. We did look at that in a number of different locations. And they're rebuilding the First Avenue Bridge right now, and they've demoed, oh gosh, I haven't been through the Greenway for about a week, so I guess I don't know if they've actually demoed the Nicollet Bridge yet, but they are planning to demo the Nicollet Bridge this year too, along at the same time they're demoing the First Avenue Bridge, and they're reconstructing First right now, if you've been over there. And so the bike lane will be north and southbound lanes on the west side. So when you come up, you'll be right on the bike lanes and you won't have to cross the traffic. Like if you come up on Park, you have to cross over to get over to the travel lane on the east side. That won't be the case here. You'll be able to jump right on, and there won't need to be a light for bikes at that intersection. We can't.
Early on, I saw some image of like.
So
Well, there's a green, there was, so, there's the plans for the street that I've seen and the plans for the actual, like, development of the lot itself, and there were bike connections through the lot that I've
there
seen.
was an angle.
Yeah.
We cannot connect from the south because Metro Transit still has
Yeah.
in their adopted plan
That
the
would,
transit line in the greenway, and you can't have pedestrians or bicyclists traversing a transit lane
yeah,
to get to their bike lane. And so until or if or when or never, who knows, the Metro Transit Metropolitan Council plans that are adopted, their adopted plans and their adopted policies for the greenway, as long as it continues to show transit, we cannot build.
and the one that
We can't build a connection from the south.
the one that I remember also wasn't actually connected from the greenway, it was just like a cross.
She's
through.
talking about the angle that you.
Yeah.
It was part of the
Oh.
accepted plan, so that up and
Yeah,
that is just a pedestrian slash bike.
Oh, that,
Yeah,
oh,
that
that goes through?
Yeah.
Yes, that will be,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
That
yes.
plan-
That's gonna be all great. That's gonna be connect, that's gonna be accurate.
That's the right.
Yes, and that's all accurate. So then, so that was the street. Now, we'll, like we said, that's next. We'll go, okay, so then for the public space, we talked about activities and features or, kind of facilities. I think features is probably the better word. We started with it. And did our priorities, and flexible space really topped the list, as well as just gathering. And then trees, not a surprise, because we don't have any. And then just some more actual open space screening, which is really equivalent in a lot of ways to this flexible space on top. Or if you want to have a birthday party, you can have a birthday party. If you want to have a pickup soccer game, you throw the soccer, soccer ball around, you can do that. So those kind of topped the list, and we ended up working with our consultants, and we had 3 options that we took for engagement. That was the A, B, and C. And so you can kind of see, top is a linear along the greenway, and B, or A, and then B is linear along Nicollet on the west side, and then C is just like a 2-acre park Well, it's about 1.5 to 2 acres, we haven't exactly decided where that line's gonna be. And then it would have bike and ped paths that would travel to get you from where the Greenway exit spits you out at the top of, at first, to the lit intersection at Blaisdell and Lake. Because if you don't have it going through the site, you have to really go around to like make your. So that is our attempt to try to make it a little bit more of a friendly,
And it divides up
Biking.
the parcel. So that it makes it more small scale. Depending on how we get to that.
Right.
Later.
which is what we're looking at. Okay, so then we ended up with C. And it's 2 options because we don't really know, and we had an architect, but not a developer, and our consulting team for developing these. And so while in a perfect world, it's possible to build buildings with this diagonal and this kind of trapezoidal type figure. I don't know how to use my math terms or geometry terms. It's likely much simpler and potentially more viable / feasible to just have it vertical. So we haven't decided. We're exploring both as we're going through phase 3.
An architect, I think that looks nicer and engages people way more with the streetscape versus the angle.
It also-
A typical grid.
We are very excited about it. However, there are a lot.
Certainly, it's work.
Big part of the front linear park, I can't entitle, I'm just thinking of like the green, there's like the little greenway and Loring from Nicollet over to the park. That's happening, but it's very linear. And also it doesn't really have a lot of like flexible space to the,
Right.
it just benefits.
I mean, if you go back to the previous slide, and you look at that, like, you're really trying to get people from Lake Street to First Ave, and to do that, people have to go to the middle of the
Yeah.
property to get there, which makes, there's no point in that anymore, you're dividing it up. Whereas the First Ave can really get you there at a great path, and human experience and scale, that makes it way more.
Yeah.
My personal perspective. You know, I don't-
We do love it from that perspective. Getting trash trucks in is really proving to be somewhat difficult. But anyway, so we are looking at both options and we'll be presenting the pros and cons from the trade-off between the 2 options in
Go
phase
deep.
3. What was that?
Go deep, all the loading
Yeah.
docks and parking should be underneath all of us.
Yes,
They
well,
could finance under, but they would have to get the same developer a whole part to do that. Other things you could also do traffic up and drop off on the street, where they roll carts to there. Which is
Just like New York.
Yeah, they got trash.
now there's no parking on First, absolutely 0 parking, absolutely 0 loading, no nothing. So you cannot stop
yeah, but on
for
the.
anything. A delivery driver, nobody can stop on that block.
Or
They
place,
do. No, Blaisdell, they do, but they're not supposed to. Now, Blaisdell, there is some parking,
you could do a
but
drop off.
yeah. So we, so we are exploring what would curbside loading and unloading look like if we were to sign parking. Specific hours for loading and unloading, blah, blah, you know,
Or
like
even-
what that's like. And then there's about, give or take, 6 to 8 parking stalls that will be added on the new. And that's it.
I get you, no, it is a tougher, it's
So
a
we-
tougher sell.
Yeah,
But there is ways of doing it,
Right.
and if you do get the same developer that does both, like a little bit of the south parcel, and a little bit of the north, they can do one larger development. So it
Yeah.
brings over the street, who says that it has to be all open, it could
Yep.
be one larger development.
Vast majority of underground loading that are 1 block. So that's the most of them in the city. So it doesn't, I mean, it'd be nice to go in for, come out, Blaisdell, that'd be grand. But you could do an underground dock parking on this block and that block. That's how everybody else.
well, and the west side is larger than a typical block.
Yeah, and also, I don't think we want like really large scale development, that takes up the whole block, but it's dividing it up again. For the efficiency, what developers can do, money in the work,
There's
basically.
a lot of space there. And the fountain for Aragon and Erewhon in the park, is that down in yet or?
The what? The fountain for,
Fountain that celebrates mortal and elf eternity.
maybe you'll have to
Alright,
become a
I'll have to send you the drawing.
All right, so that's phase two. And now we're in phase three. So again, I think I mentioned this, we're looking at the timeline, we got the development plan, so this is like, what are our goals? We're doing we have a market study that we're continuing to add to, we're looking at a lot of things. So we're looking at existing, sort of distribution and density of varying amounts of affordable housing. We're looking at existing market rate rent. We're looking at, do we sell one big parcel to one big developer that can build multiple buildings? Do we chop it up? Not to be a negative word, but do we create much smaller parcels that are more potentially typical of some of the surrounding areas, specifically, maybe, you know, a little bit further off from where Lake Street and the Greenway, but a bit more into the neighborhood, you see much smaller parcels. Do we do that? In which case, a lot of our other, if we try to have newer developers that are capable of doing smaller development sites, it becomes much more challenging to do some of the really creative things we want, when it comes to shared parking, shared voting facilities, shared, like, yeah, so.
But you don't get more time to about all the building. Economize on the materials.
Yeah, and we're looking at how, you know,
You
the
have,
number of stories and the market feasibility for concrete versus over one, stick built, all those.
are there any large developers that are willing to do a percentage of equity owned by others? Like
Well, we
they-
haven't started
they-
talking to developers or anything yet,
they
so,
build it, but sell it to some.
well, that would be an ownership, so you know, there could be, we are looking at, is there any way to get ownership housing on this site? And our market analysis is saying maybe affordable townhome.
There's gonna be ownership housing on the site, but it's a matter of who owns it. I want the people who
Right.
live there to own it.
Right, that's what I mean when I say ownership. And so the person paying the mortgage also owns the title, that kind of thing. So we're not gonna get condos here when you look at the financing and the market analysis and the feasibility for that in like the next couple of years. Now, that's not to say the market won't change in 2030 or 2035, or who knows? But right now, like our first phase, that's not feasible financially. But it's possible we could get affordable ownership town. And then that, you know, creates some other challenges. Technically, our zoning needs to be a minimum of 4 stories, ownership townhomes are not 4 stories, so there's lots of details. Yeah, no, that also is against zoning code. So, lots of challenges. Parking either has to be buried or cannot be visible from the street. So like, so anyway, so lots of things we're looking at. All right, next slide. And so I have 3 slides that have a couple questions. This ones are just like 2 really just basic, wide open questions. And then the next slide is about what our engagement is going to look like in the rest of phase 3, and a question about like, what are we missing? What should we be doing more of? Who are we not talking to in this scenario? That kind of thing. And then the final question is, how do we get the word out about those events and engagement opportunities so that more and more people are aware and more people are providing their input and getting interested in the future of this project. So these 2 are just like wide open. What priorities you have for this development and this phase, the development objectives, the development goals, like what are some of the priorities you have? And then what opportunities or concerns do you have about like where we've gone so far, where we're at, are we missing something about like, have we skipped a step? So these are pretty broad, and I don't know if anyone's really gonna have any, you know, sort of overarching, yes.
I guess one of in terms of I feel like I have seen, not specifically in Minneapolis, but just like generally, I have seen major development projects that were like pitched in this really like brilliant, exciting, like we're changing the cityscape way, and then you get to actual like the final stage of construction, and the thing that is actually executed is like pretty structurally and conceptually and environmentally different than the thing that was proposed. I'm from Seattle, and I'm specifically thinking of a like astronomically huge waterfront redesign project there that took out an elevated freeway and replaced it with a tunnel and was gonna create this beautiful green pedestrian friendly waterfront, and created like an 8-lane road that is still horrendously unpleasant to walk on. It created a bike lane that's like not really bike accessible, and they did a bunch of shit that's like, this is not what people were promised. This is not what voters voted for. And I understand that this is not a proposal that's gonna be voted on by residents. But you know, like that is always my concern with something like this, where we're being offered something that's really exciting. Like, I would love for Lake Street to be more pedestrian and bike friendly. I am a pedestrian and bicyclist. It is awful, and I don't bike on it. And obviously, like, this is just one block of that, but or 2 blocks of that, I guess. But it's a step, right? And that is my concern, is that the specific engineering and design that you're talking about, like, I understand that some of those things happen for a reason, and it's also like, as a resident, it is very consistently frustrating to me to see the thing that I like did give feedback give feedback on and like provide insight in never come to fruition so frequently, and have really like hard to access internal city design conversations just override my feedback of it, basically.
I think it's more
Yeah.
community members about what you're actually getting versus fun idea, like it sounds great, it goes right.
Yeah.
That's concern.
And we talk about that almost every meeting, almost every week. We talk about like, how do we show something that doesn't get, and that's why we try never to show pictures. Show one picture, and everybody's like, but I like that picture. We're like, yeah, but we could never do that picture in person.
I'm specifically talking, this is my. Or just like a piece of the complaint. In this context. But there's a specific bike line. I'm thinking about one very particular project, but like there's a specific bike line that's like not. It's like not in compliance with Seattle's own like minimum width regulations for a 2-way bike lane. Like the thing that they constructed is like not wide. It's physically not wide enough to be the thing that they're calling it. And it like bends at all of you the same angles, and like that's the thing I'm talking about. Not, and I understand the truth, and like when you give people a hyper realistic mock-up, they're gonna take that as fact. That's not actually what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Because like that is true, and I know that to be true, and I also know that to be like, at a certain point, that's just like hard to prevent.
right,
I'm more talking about like
okay,
things where it's like, the thing that you created is failing to provide the thing that you said. Like you said you would give us a 2-way bike lane, and you gave us a bike lane that's like not wide enough to safely be ridden in by 2 people.
Hopefully they're using the right designers and.
Yeah, no, and I obviously, I'm just like, this is my personal like thinking about it. Is that the thing that is executed fundamentally failed to achieve the thing that was committed to,
Right.
Not just like aesthetically or conceptually, but like on a.
Yeah, just to kind of go all about that concerns I have about why 2 things. First of all, talk about the park. I know the park is going to be Minneapolis public for property future, so they're going to be developing that. I would hate to see it sit there for 10 years on developing funding to develop it. And I would like to see it being activated, don't want to see it being this large open property that's just gonna take another encampment, which is what's gonna happen. So like we're providing housing for that, don't happen. That's one of my concerns, because I know that that's a separate budget per se. I don't know how much city got control over that, that's something to bring up. My other concern or opportunity, there's no such thing as a concern, is really elevating the built environment. not creating this difficult housing everywhere. I want to community smaller building, maybe shorter, smaller parcels, larger. parcels. And I think you can achieve a lot of that there. Versus going with one route or the other, it's not either or, it's an approach. How do we really create unique spaces where people can have do natural, not really create this large complex, all facade that's like 6 stories tall. I mean, like, how do we create them that are maybe 14 stories and some that are maybe 4? Because that's only public requirements. So things like that is what I see that as an opportunity. Something. I'll pass it on to Aaron and then I'll go to Kedar.
Can we go back a couple slides to where the drawing is? Just to see the site. So, yeah, that's cool. So my question, just a quick question, progress on the north side, right? Is any luck on acquiring the lands yet on the other side of it?
We are not seeking to purchase those properties.
Okay, so there's no plan on that yet.
There was a conversation at one point. That
Yeah.
The numbers were totally off.
Well, I just.
One of the owners, it won't tell us how much he wants, and the other owner wants more than it's appraised at, and we already have 10 acres to try to.
But
actually
I just wanna throw this out here so everybody knows that this little room here and all the other little rooms that we have endless amounts of power. This is the busiest intersection in the state of Minnesota. The land and whatever happens there is more valuable than anybody's imagining in this room. And we have the power to ask for what we want. And when we go to zoning and land use committee meeting, when we go to licensing hearings, every single project here is gonna want to pull a permit, have a license to operate. We can ask for what we want and we can get it. A property, that property will pay for whatever we want to do. So do not sell ourselves short. Do not think it can't be done. We have to dream it, leave it, and ask for it, and it will happen.
Kedar?
So my main concern is that like, it seems like everything is getting really focused just specifically on this 10 acres and this like. But there's like, if you just go 1 block east, there's a major transit stop.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it's completely integrated here. I just feel like we need to expand about it, go 1 block north, 1 block south, because there's a lot of stuff happening just 1 block south of Lake Street. We just, we realize partially funded a building that's gonna be, that's under. There's.
Oh, the 30-30 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like we need to.
For how we're looking at it, just like for our visuals, we don't own any of it, we can't do anything with it.
Right, yeah.
But in terms of how it relates to the surrounding, yeah. Yes, that is, yeah, we can.
So yeah, I think it's just taking into consideration where we're
Yeah.
coming from, I think is really important, like where people hopefully are gonna be using that transit station way more and getting
Yeah.
to this site for making this a destination.
Yeah. We have we have bigger maps that show all of like the pedestrian and bike movement. And so we could take one of those and sort of edit it in a way that maybe take out all the blue lines and like travel lines, because you know, we got a 1-way and a cut and 2-way and then blah, blah, blah. So we've done lots of track analysis around how if you're traveling northbound over here and you want to go over there, how many times you have to circle the block to get there, right? And so maybe doing something larger helps people start to like see a little bit beyond. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Mhm.
So, concern, I guess, for me, being not very far away from this development really is with large scale developments, we have experienced an increase in congestion and traffic. So any way to mitigate that, and then also like mid-block crosswalk, big advocate, or bike walk, big advocate for that, because these are large city blocks.
Yeah, there
So-
will be a lit, that one will be lit.
Yeah,
So it'll be.
so if we can
I'm
help
told
like
It'll be like.
advocate for maintaining that.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're lit,
Okay.
but can you explain everybody what it is? I understand.
Oh, if you've ever,
The flashing one.
yeah, if you've ever been on like 31st and you wanna go into the, 5 Points, formerly known as Calhoun Square parking ramp, there's like a light there, cause it's a big block, and so it'll be
It's an actual,
similarly.
not flashing like on the hill.
It'll be,
Oh,
yeah, it'll be an
actual-
actual like a 4 type
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there might be some raised treatment as well,
Yeah.
Great drop-offs.
something like that, yeah. It's gonna be pretty, advanced,
I would like,
I would think,
I'd like to see that.
yes, okay, see, let's hear it.
Yeah, I love the angle.
So yeah, anything to move around there safely as a pedestrian or a cyclist, I think is good, but also making sure like cars navigate that safely and slowly. And that it's not confusing or vexing too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
like the more that is like less appealing it also makes it for cars. And so like when you have spaces, you're like, yeah, you can drive through here. It's gonna be like a little slow experience.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's yes, option.
Or we can
I
have a
just
real
feel
wall.
like that
Let's be-
like on brand, mostly I'm thinking brand right now, like. The occasional time that I like, it is convenient for me to drive on brand. Am I thinking the brand? Brian, with the new. Like, it's narrow, it is like, the road changes where it is, just be more thoughtful. And that helps. Reducing congestion.
Anecdotal support of the aim. So Phillips West, you're trying to drag in, right? Walks there anyway, across the 28th Street Bridge, and they cut through the top lot of the alley.
Yep,
And the
yep, yep.
natural path to all of the businesses on this side of Lake Street is in Maine. So I think there's an architectural human traffic density.
Okay.
That's not car, not public transportation, that's foot, bicycle, scooter, skateboard, foot. And when they, not to say that there's nothing going on, you know, over here, you have, Nicollet, which is a factory, so they're not going to that. And if they wanted to go to businesses on the other side of 35, they're gonna walk directly there. So this angle is a natural flow of things to all the businesses on Lake Street, which, you know, this is part of the business, but we want all these businesses to work. So that would be a very inviting.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect contact.
Thank you.
This is a priority, not a concern. But, I guess a priority or an encouragement is, to not wait for people to come to you when you do engagement. I think it's easy to do passive engagement, and passive engagement doesn't work. Like just full stop.
Yes.
And I think in considering how you can do that, like being really purposeful about what partners you are collaborating with and what partners you are resourcing to make that a reality, you know, because you know, to the neighborhood association collaboration, like, right, what very hyper local organization are you collaborating with, but also resourcing to make that a reality? Like, how are you making that like deeply accessible to community, whether that's like translating services, even if you're not certain they'll be used, whether it's like having childcare available at events. Like, I know when we tabled in Whittier Park, one of the things that I heard people talking about a lot was like being really excited at the prospect of like having more like child-friendly park space within a closer distance of them, with Whittier Park being like one of the biggest and best options for a lot of people south of 26. And like for a lot of people, that's a far walk, right? If you're walking with like a 3-year-old. And so how do we make sure that like that those stakeholders are fully able to access the masses and feedback events that'll happen, and then like also food, also stipends, like not to go back to HDL, but like one of the things that's been really cool and effective with HDL is like we have offered Housing Justice League, sorry, but yeah, like we have offered participation stipends, and it makes it a lot more.
We did that. We also did
So-
some of that for the case.
So for phase 1 and phase 2,
Yeah.
Whittier Alliance was part of those public contracts include Whittier Alliance, and we all then, and Whittier, I would say Maggie and Kaylee. I mean, in my opinion, I think we did a pretty fantastic job and even made improvements in phase 2, but we went to some housing, and the city of Minneapolis and we go to Foreign Towers, and we go to Lake Street Council meetings, and we go to these places where they already are,
Yeah.
because asking people to come doesn't really work. We do an open house, but tabling events and pop-up things really never actually.
Yeah.
We do it because we need to like have a vision, we need to be visible, but we don't really think that they actually we don't actually get as much
Yeah.
information as those.
And I understand that, like, sorry, I'm being really quick, I promise. Like, I'm saying this not because I know that this has been done already. Like, I've observed some of it through the board, I've observed some of it through like being in the community. It's more like, don't use that, because it
Right.
works. Yeah.
And if there are other suggestions of things we haven't done, that we want to know about. So right now, we're just doing some neighborhood group events. We don't have any meaty questions yet. And the meaty stuff's gonna come in September after Labor Day, when people we think are gonna be, in more of a set schedule with being back to school and all of that, and won't be as many vacations and things. So we do have an event on August 20th for folks that are interested. We'll be starting, and that's gonna be like walking around the site. And yeah, we tried to do that before. Not cool as I hope. Anyway, when we had the big, yeah, this didn't work. I thought we were actually gonna have to, whatever. So many cooks in the kitchen, but. So there will be one, and then we'll have a survey. There'll be one survey this phase, and that'll likely be open sometime in September, probably sometime right before Thanksgiving. We will have an open house. That's gonna be September 26th. And that will be at the Cultural Center where we have the others. We will be trying to figure out some door-to-door canvassing for the businesses and apartment buildings. We'll likely do some either transit stop pop-ups in the fall when it's cooler, or we are doing some surveys in a different project I'm working on, where you get on the bus and then you just do the survey with the bus riders on the air conditioning. So we'll do one of those two things, and we'll go back to sort of like our regular neighborhood groups, Horn Towers, Lake Street Council, Freo, Carmel Mall. We'll try to go back to all of those again in either September or October, to meet up with those groups again. But very interested to find out who else, maybe we haven't, or maybe there's a new meeting or a new group that we haven't thought about. And so you can always just get those over to Maggie, and she knows my email. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the problem with the last plan 50 years ago, it was always unfinished. And I think that land north of the Greenway between Cecil Newman, needs some stuff. And I think I'm just gonna say that the one that's holding out for more money, it might seem like more money now after the other investments have made, it's only gonna go up. So I would aggressively pursue that. The one that's not responding, there has been trauma there that the owner was murdered in the site, and it is in the hands of a family member who never wanted the business. And so maybe some of us could reach out on that. But I think the plan has to be complete. We can't do all this and then leave a unfinished stretch of real estate. And it could always just be more park, the bigger park. It would work.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
So just keep going on the last slide. So then the last slide, yeah, there we go, no, 23. So this is like how we market. So we use city social media, we have our self-delivery, we get our community partners information for emails, social media. We will likely do postcards. We haven't done much for site signage or yard signs or radio ads, but those are some possibilities of how to get the information out, but sometimes we're not sure the bang for the buck is there. But anyway, those are some of the other things that I was just like, as we look at how to increase.
You've been to Lynn Lake yet? The Lynn Lake people?
Yeah, Sarah, who maybe is on, they don't have a summer meeting, so we're gonna go in.
Can do. Have we talked to Can do?
I have not talked to Carmen recently, but that Yeah, we'll be in touch with you again.
Alright. Thank you.
Thank you.
You, running all, a lot of.
Appreciate the
You're
conversation.
good. I'm excited. We're all excited. No, you're good. You're the right person for
I
this.
look forward to having. you
I
back.
have a great staff. We have a really fabulous team.
You have
Do you
good
want to
energy.
have the recording?
Yes.
We look forward to having you back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Great to
Thanks,
meet you.
Rebecca.
I think that's primarily it. So for general announcements, updates, and opportunities, draft